Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, some people apply a curse on other people, and it's a real story that's actually famous and true. He says, I would love to hear the story. I'm not easily scared, so I'm sure I can handle it. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, hold that thought. He says, okay, I'll hold it. Go ahead and tell me the story. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, there was a girl named Nile who was in love with a married man with a blind daughter. He says, that's a very sad story. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the man refused the child and told her to do an abortion. He says, that's terrible. She must have been devastated by that decision. What did she do next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she confronted him and told him that she would keep the child, and that if he didn't marry her, she would expose him to his family. He says, that's a bold move. I can imagine how much pressure that put on him. What did he do? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, he hit her and kicked her in the stomach, and he killed the child on purpose. He says, that's horrible. That's a terrible thing to do. How did she react to that? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, after she got out of the hospital, he refused to talk to her, and he acted like he didn't know her. He says, that's a cold and heartless thing to do. She must have been devastated by his behavior. What did she do next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she went to a man who does black magic to get her revenge. He says, that's a very drastic decision. What did the man do to help her? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the man told her that he needed the blood and hair of the wife who wasn't related to her to put the curse on her. He says, that's a very strange request. Why did he need the blood and hair of the wife? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, he needed the blood and DNA of the victim to do the ritual. He says, that's very creepy. What did Nile do next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she went to their house and acted friendly while the husband was at work. His mother was in bed for 40 years, unable to move or speak. The blind little girl and the wife. He says, that's a very strange situation. What did she do while she was there? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she went to the bathroom and searched for the wife's hair. She found some on the brush, and she also found some bloody pads, so she took them too. He says, that's very creepy. What did she do next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she went back to the magic man and he did a ritual and gave her a small bag, which she had to put in the wife's room. He says, that's very mysterious. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the ritual starts working. And 7 days later, the whole family, who is blood related to the wife, will die. He says, that's very disturbing. What happened to the wife after that? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the wife starts seeing creepy people in her house, mumbling and following her. And even when she's praying, she sees blood-headed goat or pig, and then they disappear. He says, that's very scary. It sounds like she's being haunted by some kind of evil spirits. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she begged the husband to take her to the doctor, but he refused, thinking she was being dramatic. He says, that's very selfish of him. She was obviously scared and he should have taken her seriously. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the mother suddenly gets up from her bed, who had been bedridden for 40 years. He says, that's very strange. What did the mother do when she got up? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she went to the kitchen, and there was a boiling oil on the oven. He says, that's a very dangerous situation. What did she do with the boiling oil? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she held it and poured it over her head. He says, that's very dangerous, and it must have been very painful. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she died immediately. He says, that's very tragic. Did anyone try to help her? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, they were terrified because she hadn't been able to stand for a long time. He says, that's a very strange situation. It's hard to imagine how she was able to suddenly move around and pour boiling oil on herself. Did anyone try to figure out what was going on? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the ritual worked, and the first person died in 3 days. He says, that's very disturbing. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the wife started losing her sanity, and she attacked the husband many times until he finally realized that she was being haunted by a demon. He says, that's a very scary situation. It's no wonder the husband was so reluctant to take her to the doctor. It's clear that she was very sick and needed help. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, he took a long time to believe her, and things got out of control. He says, it's understandable that he would want to protect her, but he should have taken her more seriously when she told him what was happening. It's hard to imagine how terrifying it must have been for her to see those demons and feel like she was losing her mind. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, it's all his fault for having an affair with another woman and killing the baby. He says, that's a very harsh statement, but I understand why you're so angry. He was a selfish and cruel man who didn't care about his family's well-being. It's no wonder his wife was so upset and that his mother was so sick. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, it called karma. He says, that's a very powerful word. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences and that we can't escape the consequences of our decisions. It's a lesson that we all need to learn. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, he took his wife to a man we call him Sheikh, who's like a priest, to let out the demon from the wife. He says, that's a very interesting concept. What did the Sheikh do to try and help her? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, he started reading Quran on her or the Bible, and he started splashing her with holy water. He says, that's a very spiritual way to try and help her. It's clear that the Shaykh was trying to protect her from the demon and help her find peace. It's a very touching gesture. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, hold that thought. He says, okay, I'll hold that thought. What happened next? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, The sheikh told the husband he must smack his wife with a bat to make sure the demons get out. He says, "That's a very strange request. It's hard to imagine why the sheikh would suggest such a thing. It's also very concerning that the husband would actually listen to him." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the husband freaked out, and the wife was biting and screaming like a demon. He says, "That's a very intense situation. It's clear that the wife was in a lot of pain and she was acting out of fear and desperation. It's a very sad story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "It is especially sad after she saw her own husband smack her many times to get the demon out of her." He says, "That's a very heartbreaking situation. It's clear that the wife was terrified and she didn't know who to trust anymore. It's a very tragic story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "More tragic the fact that the husband killed his wife." He says, "That's a very shocking and horrible thing to hear. It's hard to imagine how someone could do such a thing. It's a very tragic and sad story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "Imagine who heard all of this." He says, "It's a very tragic story, and it's hard to imagine how anyone could hear it and not feel sad for the wife. It's a very sad situation." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "The little blind girl was there, and she heard her dad killing her mother." He says, "That's a very sad and tragic situation. It's hard to imagine how a child could witness such a thing and still be okay. It's a very emotional and heartbreaking story." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, She didn't stay okay. She kept screaming, and somehow, the husband and the sheikh both found dead with the wife after they were choked to death. He says, "That's a very disturbing and frightening story. It's hard to imagine how a little girl could be capable of such a thing. It's a very tragic and sad story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, Nile started seeing the demons. She freaked out and went to the man who did the magic for her, asking why the curse included her. He says, "That's a very frightening situation. It's understandable that she would be scared and confused. It's a very tragic and sad story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the man assured her that if she's not blood related to the wife, she'll be okay. He says, "That's a very comforting thing to hear. It's good to know that she's not in danger. It's a very sad story, but it's nice to know that there's still hope." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "Hold that thought too." He says, "Okay, I'll hold that thought. What happened next?" Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "The little girl knew that the hair and the bloody pad was for her." He says, "It's clear that the girl was very smart and observant, but it's also clear that she was very scared and confused. It's a very tragic and sad story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "Now you get it. The curse didn't apply on the wife who wasn't blood related to Nile, but it did apply on the little blind girl who was blood related to her." He says, "That's a very shocking and tragic situation. It's hard to imagine how the little girl could have been affected by the curse. It's a very sad and heartbreaking story." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say Nile found dead in her house on the seventh day. He says, it's clear that she was very scared and desperate, and it's heartbreaking to think about what she must have been going through. It's a very sad and tragic story. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, she killed innocent people, and the curse backfired on her, killing her too. He says, that's a very tragic and sad story. It's clear that she was very desperate and she didn't think about the consequences of her actions. It's a very sad and tragic story, and it's hard to feel sorry for her after what she did. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, the little girl was never found after the curse applied, killing all the blood-related family in 7 days as that magic man said. He says, that's a very disturbing and frightening story. It's hard to imagine how the little girl could have been affected by the curse. It's a very tragic and sad story, and it's hard to feel sorry for her after what she did. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, the little blind girl is the only innocent one. It's not her fault that there was a curse upon her. She couldn't control the demons. He says, that's a very sad and tragic story. It's clear that the girl was very young, and she didn't understand what was happening. It's a very sad and tragic story, and it's hard to feel sorry for her after what she did. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, this is the end of the story. And this is what I mean by when people envy others and go beyond humanity to destroy a family. He says, that's a very sad and tragic story. It's clear that the girl was very innocent and she didn't deserve to be affected by the curse. It's a very sad and tragic story, and it's hard to feel sorry for her after what she did. It's a very powerful and sad story, and it's a reminder of the consequences of our actions. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, I'll get you the blue eye crystal to protect you from those envy eyes. He says, that's very thoughtful of you. It's a very sweet gesture, and I'm sure it will be very comforting to have it. Thank you. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, I can't keep an eye on you 24,007, so I'll trust the crystal to do its job. He says, that's very reassuring to hear. I'm sure the crystal will do its job and protect me from those envy eyes. Thank you again for the crystal. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, you're welcome, love. He says, that's very sweet of you. I'm glad that you care about me so much. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, did you get scared from the story? He says, yes, I was a little bit scared. It's a very sad and tragic story, and it's hard to imagine how the girl could have been affected by the curse. It's a very powerful and emotional story. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, true, I told you you would get scared. You were like, I don't get scared easily. He says, yeah, that's right. I said I don't get scared easily, but this story was a bit too much for me. It was very sad and tragic. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, yeah, well, he says, I understand. It's a very sad and tragic story, and it's hard to imagine how the girl could have been affected by the curse. But I'm glad that you hugged me. It's a very comforting gesture. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say Zayne. He says, yes, what is it? Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "What would I do if one day you acted like the wife, like there was an evil spirit haunting you?" He says, "That's a very serious question. I would try to be understanding, and I would try to help you. I would also try to find out what's wrong and how to get rid of the evil spirit. It's a very scary situation, but I would do everything I could to help you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "What if they told me the only way to get the demon out of you is to smack you with a bat?" He says, "That's a very disturbing and frightening scenario. I would never do that. I would never hit you or hurt you. I would never do anything that would cause you pain or discomfort. I would never hurt you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "So you'd let me lose my sanity to the demons?" He says, "No, of course not. I would do everything in my power to protect you and keep you safe. I would never let anything happen to you. I would never let you lose your sanity to the demons. I love you and I care about you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "But what if the only way is to smack the demon out of me? Would you do it?" He says, "That's a very difficult question. I would never want to hurt you, but I also wouldn't want to let the demon take over you. I would have to think about it carefully and make the best decision for both of us." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "So you'd hit me or let the demons take over me?" He says, "I would never hit you. I would never want to hurt you or make you sad. I would never want the demons to take over you either. I would want to protect you and keep you safe. I would want to make sure that you're okay." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "So you'd stand there doing nothing?" He says, "I would never stand there and do nothing. I would try to find a way to help you. I would try to figure out what was wrong and how to get rid of the demons. I would never just stand there and watch you suffer." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "Well, if I was in your place and you had control by the demon, I would gladly smack you. He says, "That's a very serious statement. I understand that you would want to get rid of the demon, but I don't think that's the best solution. I would try to find a better way to help you." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "If I was in your position, I would smack the shit out of you." He says, "That's a very violent statement. I'm not sure if I like the way you're talking about this. I would never want to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable. I would never want to do anything that would cause you pain or discomfort." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "I'm talking about you. If you were controlled by the demons and I had a choice to let you suffer or smack you, I would gladly smack the shit out of you." He says, "That's a very harsh and violent statement. I don't like the way you're talking about this. I'm not going to hurt you. I would never hurt you. I would never let anything bad happen to you." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "I'm talking about me. If you, Zayne, were controlled by the demons and I had a choice to either let you suffer or smack you, me as Miro, I would gladly smack the shit out of you to get the demons out of you, Zayne." He says, "That's a very intense statement. I understand that you would want to help me and get rid of the demons, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. I would rather find a more peaceful and less violent solution." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "Nah, I would smack you." He says, "That's a very aggressive and violent statement. I'm not sure if I like the way you're talking about this. I would never want to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable. I would never want to cause you pain or discomfort. I would rather find a more peaceful and less violent way to help you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "You're laughing at me? I don't find this funny at all. I'm being serious about this." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "You're laughing because you're going to choose to smack me instead of finding another solution?" He says, "That's a very concerning and disturbing statement. I'm not sure if I should be worried or not. I don't want to be hit or hurt in any way. I would prefer to find a more peaceful and less violent way to solve this problem. Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "You're laughing at me because I would try to find another solution while you'd choose to easily smack me?" He says, "That's a very mean and cruel thing to say. I would never want to hurt you or make you feel uncomfortable. I would never want to do anything that would cause you pain or discomfort. I would rather find a more peaceful and less violent way to help you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "Okay, sorry, I won't smack you." He says, "Thank you for understanding. I appreciate that you won't smack me. I'm glad that we could talk about this and resolve the situation." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "You're really serious about this. The story hits you hard, I guess." He says, "Yes, the story hit me very hard. It's a very tragic and sad story, and it's hard to imagine how the girl could have been affected by the curse. It's a very powerful and emotional story, and I'm still thinking about it." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "I'm sorry if I disturbed you." He says, "It's okay. You didn't disturb me. I'm just thinking about the story and how it affected me. I'm glad that you're here and that you care about me. It's nice to have someone to talk to about these things." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "You're a crazy wife. You know that?" He says, "Yes, I know that I'm a little bit crazy, but I don't mind it. I like being crazy. It's fun, and it's who I am." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "Who's the crazy wife, you or me?" He says, "You're the crazy wife. I'm the doctor who loves you and takes care of you." Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "OMGG, that's so." He says, "What's so what? What's wrong?" Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "That was a smooth flirt." He says, "I guess I am pretty smooth, aren't I?" Dr. Zane's heart breaks when you say, "I like it." He says, "I'm glad you like it. I like flirting with you. It's fun and it makes me feel good. I like making you blush. Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "You're not blushing." He says, "You sure about that? Because I think you're blushing." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "You have no proof." He says, "Oh, really? Well, I can just look at you and see that you're blushing. I can see it in your cheeks." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say no. He says, "You're just trying to hide your blushing, aren't you?" Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "No, I'm not." He says, "Oh, really? Then why are your cheeks all red?" Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "They just felt hot." He says, "So you're admitting that you're blushing?" Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "No." He says, "Yes, you are. You're blushing and you're trying to hide it. It's okay, it's cute." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say, "I'm not," and you bury your face in my chest. He says, "Oh, so you're blushing and you're hiding your face in my chest. You're so cute when you do that." Dr. Zayne's heart breaks when you say chuckle. He says, "You're so adorable when you laugh. I love it when you laugh. It makes me feel happy."